Hey guys, Luke here. In this video we're going to be going through using an anchor to self-launch your kite. So we're going to go through the setup, building an anchor, finding a suitable place to launch from, and then actually the process of launching the kite. So we just arrived down here at the beach and we're actually going to use one of these poles as the anchor to launch our kite. So we'll get down on the sand and like I said, we'll get the pieces out and we'll just go through the process of building the anchor and then using this pole to get the kite in the air all by yourself. So let's get down there. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually build the anchor itself, and the parts we need for that is a piece of rope and a carabiner. And when you're choosing one of these or both of these, you really want to get something that has a high breaking point because the kite, if anything goes wrong when you're self-launching this way, the kite can really generate a lot of pull, and so you want to make sure that you've selected something that can handle that type of pressure on it. So this is a more heavy duty carabiner. A climbing carabiner would probably be good, and also this rope has a higher breaking strain. You could use like a strap, but for me I like to use the rope, and I find that it's easier to tie the knot in it and it's just easier all around for me. So I've got a length of rope here. So you can buy this from the hardware store or wherever you can buy some rope. And you can see it's probably about 3 meters long or so. And the reason is because we're going to double it up and turn it into a loop. We use the loop instead of just a single piece so that we can always just come back and use the same loop to connect to anything. So we need to tie the two ends together. Now, if I just put the carabiner down. If you don't know how to tie knots, then you probably just want to go on YouTube and find a tutorial on how to tie these two ends together. I'd recommend you either use a figure-8 follow-through or a double fisherman's. And right now I'm going to use the figure-8 follow-through. So basically you make a figure-8 knot like this in one end, and then you pick up your other end. Like I said, if you don't know how to do this, just go on YouTube it. This is a climbing knot, pretty common climbing knot. So then you basically, this comes back through. It's a little bit difficult to demonstrate, but what we're doing is following that same track with the rope all the way back around, back through, and you can see what it does is create that same figure of 8. And that's a really strong knot for a single line. You can see it's on the same line now. That rope is basically going all the way through, and it's just a really strong line connecting knot where it doesn't reduce the strength of your rope too much. Again, you could use the double fisherman's if you prefer that, but either way, you've got to get it into a loop. Next, quickly about the carabiner. Spring-loaded one I find is easiest without a lock. It doesn't need a lock because you want to be able to get in and out of it pretty easily, and the spring-loaded is easily enough to keep the chicken loop connected to this. You could get a bigger one than this. I find a bigger one is actually a little bit easier when you're trying to connect your chicken loop and get it all set up. However, this is what they had in the shop. Another good suggestion is to get one that has a little loop here. So this is a solid ring, and then you could build that into this rope so that it's already pre-connected to it, and it makes it easier when you're picking it up that it's not sort of backwards or anything. So sometimes you're going to connect it, which we'll see in a moment, it might be sitting like this, so you just have to turn it around. When it's got a ring on there, it just stays on the rope perfectly ready for action. So now we've built our anchor. The next thing you want to do when you come down, you want to find a really suitable anchor point. And this could be even the tow ball of your car, a tree, something that basically you can wrap a rope around, and it's going to be really heavy and it's going to hold the kite, the pressure of the kite, particularly if anything goes wrong. The kite itself, under normal circumstances when we're launching, really doesn't have much pressure in it at all. It's really very smooth. However, if something was to go wrong and it was to roll back or load up or fly or something, then you'd really want a nice secure anchor point. So you want to find that on the beach. Now, this beach, you can see, there's nothing really here in the dunes. It's all just grass and sand, and the trees are really set back. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of those posts And right now, what we've got is the wind direction coming from over there and coming down here. So the wind direction is going this way, which means that we have to be perpendicular to the wind to launch. And the only reason that that's worth working out right now is that if there's anything, or if this is a tight situation or a really hard area, you don't want to run your lines downwind and then have to drag them all the way back up to the anchor point. You want to find your anchor point and then sort of project in your mind where the kite is going to be launching from, which will be perpendicular to that anchor point against the wind. And so that's important to note right now. So you can see this is the anchor point we're going to be using up there. We've got the wind directly at my back, so the kite's going to be around about here, which is across the wind. So you can set your kite up where it's going to be, particularly if it's a harsh area. Because one of the reasons that I like, or pretty much the only reason that I use an anchor launch like this, is when it's a tough area to launch. Sandy beach like this, I'll just use the drag method. You can see our other video for how you can self-launch like that, because it's just so easy. The kite's not going to get damaged, really low risk. But when it's rocky and there's logs around or anything difficult, then I really like to use this anchor. It feels a lot safer. So now that we've created our loop, it's really easy to connect this to anything. So what we do is you just go around it. So you get the loop and it goes around, and then you just put it straight through itself. Now, you can see I've got the knot on the end of it. We don't want it there because that's where we're going to have our carabiner. We're just going to modify that a little bit so that we get that out of the way. Okay, so now you can see we've got plenty of space. When this pulls tight, it's going to be a nice clear area here. And one of the nice things about having the loop that pulls back through itself is under load that actually self-tightens. So if the kite flies, it won't slide up the pole or anything like that. Now we've done that, simple as putting our carabiner on, and it's going to sit something like this. Okay, so now we've got our anchor set up. We're happy with our pole, nice, really stable anchor. And we've got our rope ready, so we'll go and pump up the kite and then we'll go through actually launching it. Okay, so now that we've pumped up the kite, we're going to connect the bar and lines, and maybe you're familiar with downwind setup or an upwind setup for your bar and line setup. But again, if this area is sort of a little bit hazardous, what you really want to do when you're setting up an anchor like this is set up your bar and lines straight to the anchor. So you don't want to be setting up your bar and lines all the way downwind or all the way upwind and then having to drag them all the way around to the anchor. So again, it's sort of one of the reasons why we pump up the kite in the right spot, and then now we can run our lines pretty much hopefully directly to the anchor itself. So if you're not used to setting up your bar and lines on a diagonal, then that's something you just want to practice a little bit, make sure you get it right. One of the nice things about the anchor is we get a chance to actually stand the kite up and sort of see if everything's set up nicely, but it's still not 100% because you're not actually at the bar sighting it. So you want to make sure you get this set up really good. So you sit the bar basically exactly where you want it, and then we'll go and connect it to the kite. So again, you'd really want just your own system to know that this is set up correctly. I've done this so many times that I know when I'm setting up on a diagonal how I like to attach my lines, which lines I like to attach first. Main thing is, of course, that it's just right. So you just got to make sure that even though it might look a little bit tangled, you have to really be on it, and you have to know that you're setting it up right. Okay, so now we know all 4 lines are connected correctly, and you've double checked it, triple checked it, whatever you had to do to make sure that this is set up perfectly. We're going to go and connect it to the anchor, and then we're going to get ready to launch. So just while we're walking back up there, a couple of safety things. You want to make sure you've got at least 3 line lengths, downwind. You don't want to really be doing this in a crowded area, because if the kite does anything unexpected, okay, you never really know. You want to make sure that you've got plenty of room, and you don't really want any major sort of snags within your line length. Of course, when you're attached to an anchor like this, that's all, the other side is all filled with snags and problems, and if your kite flies over there, it's going to get torn in half. But hopefully, all going well, then the kite stays down in the position. And look, I've never had it do anything erratic, but it's possible. It's possible that the kite will fly, but really unlikely, and we'll go through that in just a moment. So we're just gonna, the step is just literally clip your chicken loop on. Now this is connected to the pole, and you can see that can take pressure now. So all of this is the kite pulling it, the bar's just gonna go like this. I've got the bar set up the way I like it, and at the moment it's fully powered up. I'm just gonna take just a little bit of power out of it, and basically you want to set that for the conditions that you expect to be flying them in. So you don't want to come back and connect to this when you've got the kite fully powered up, but it's so windy that you're not going to be flying like that. So just try and have a think about how windy it is, and then you can set this, your trim, before you launch the kite to the right amount. Right, let's go set it up. So you want to move anything that is downwind of your kite, upwind of your kite, so your kite doesn't move back through it. Now we're literally going to grab the kite and turn it up just like you're launching it for somebody else. And then we move back until the lines get tension on them. And then allow the kite to settle where it wants to be. Okay, so now you can see the kite should just sit there on its wingtip, but we don't want to be hanging out too long. We really want to get back to our bar and line so we can launch it, but the kite should just sit neutrally right here. Okay, so there are a couple of things you can do right now. Some people, just including me, I like to stay close to the line so that if anything really does go wrong, you can grab that front line, take a few steps upwind, and the kite will just collapse. Some people like to hook their leash onto that line like this, so that as you're walking, same deal, if anything goes wrong, the kite, you've connected to this leash, a couple of steps up, and the kite falls out of the sky. See, it's sitting there pretty stably, so I'm just going to run, get back to the chicken loop. Once you're back at the anchor, the first thing you want to do is connect your safety system. So now you're connected to that, and then lift the whole thing up so it's really close to your chicken loop. Hook it onto your hook, undo the carabiner, put in your donkey stick, and then you should literally be ready. The kite's already sitting in position just to pilot the kite up. And there we go. So it's as easy as that, and you can see the kite really did just sit there very calmly waiting for us to pilot it up, and it's exactly the opposite for landing it. So we can bring the kite back down. We've come in from a session, we stand next to our anchor, let the kite rest into position. And you can see it's not an ideal spot here because the lines, this sort of hump in the sand doesn't make it great. But we just drop the bar, let it sit, let it find its resting place, pick up the carabiner, hook it on to your chicken loop, undo the stick, and then you can let it out until it gets tension on those lines and undo your safety system. So look, it's that easy to launch and land. So I'm just going to pilot that back up again. So one more time, you've run back to it, hook on your safety system, come on, bring it up close to your chicken, to your hook, hook it on, carabiner comes off, donkey stick comes in, kite's there, and you should be able to pilot it just gently up into the air. And off you go. Okay, thanks guys. That is how you can launch and land using an anchor. And like I said, a couple of things just to look out for before I leave you. Safety is always important. You don't want your kite rolling back or anything dramatic happening, and so you really got to be careful of those lines. In really gusty conditions, the kite might behave a little erratically, and if it was to roll back, it might fly. And so if that was to happen, it's never happened to me, but I've had two people tell me. One person said that the kite sort of lost a lot of power. There was a big gust and then there was nothing. The lines drooped on the ground and then the back line got caught and the kite rolled over, okay? So it is possible, and it's something that you really want to be mindful of. Normal every day, it's fantastic. You can see how easy it is. The kite just sits there and it's great, but just be mindful that, you know, just like anything in kite surfing, things can change, you know, the unexpected can happen. So you really want to choose a nice solid anchor, have a good rope, a good carabiner, make sure you've got a good system for your lines and how you connect it, because the kite itself, you know, typically the kites fly great and it's normally user error that something goes wrong. So make sure you're connecting your lines, you know, you've got your own system for that. You've got a nice clear area downwind, and then this should really work for you, okay? Thanks again guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in coming videos.
And subscribe to Fluke's Kitesurfing for more how-tos.